Hello there, this is a bit of a tutorial for the market bag pattern for the Chunky Homewares course. We're going to start off with a chain of 17. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. If you come across knots and things like this one, just here, don't worry about it, just carry on crocheting. It'll get lost in the bag. Now what we need to do is we need to do 2 half double crochet stitches into the second chain from the hook. So the loop that's on your hook doesn't count as a stitch. This is the first chain from the hook. This one here is the second. Now we're going to skip this one and it doesn't count as a stitch. So I'm going to mark that with a safety pin just so that you can see that's not a stitch that we work into. Now we're going into this one, second chain from the hook, and we're going to make 2 half double crochet stitches in here. Now a half double crochet stitch is a half treble if you're using UK terms. You yarn over, insert your hook, just picking up that one top loop there, yarn over and come back through. There's 3 loops on your hook. We yarn over and pull through all 3 of them. And we're going to make 2 into that stitch. So there's 1 and there is number 2. Now we are going to do a half double crochet stitch into each of the next 14 chains. So here's the next one, and do a half double in here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's unravel a bit more of this. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There we go, there's 14. Now that leaves just one chain on the end, just here. So there's the knot, there's the last chain. We're going to do 4 half double crochet stitches into here. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we need to work along the unworked loops of the chain. So here, these are the unworked loops. Here, and here, and here, all the way down. So we put 1 half double crochet into each of these for 14 stitches. We're going to start off with this one. And we're just picking up that one loop again. And then here's the next one. And I'm going to carry on doing this all the way down to the end of my chain, so I'll be back in a minute. So here we go, there's 14 stitches, and now we need to do 2 half double crochet stitches into the space at the end, the same space that the other 2 come out of, which is this hole just here that I've got my finger in. And if you see, there's 1 half double crochet stitch, 2 half double crochet stitches from the beginning of the row into that hole. This hole just here we ignore because that's the chain that we skipped. So we're going to go straight into this hole and make 2 half double crochet stitches in there. So there's 1 and there's 2, and that gives us 2 straight sections with 14 double crochet stitches in, and 2 ends. Each end has got 4 half doubles in it. Now we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch in the row to join. Now, this here, this is the chain. There's the post for the first half double crochet stitch, just here. And because we are working right-handed and we're not turning between rows, we're working into the fronts of stitches, the hole that goes with this post is above and to the right of it, like a capital P. And so that's going in there. If you were turning between rows, it looks like a back to front capital P when you're working into the backs of stitches, but we're working into the front and we're working right-handed, so the space that you work into is just above and to the right of the post. There's the post, there's the hole. So we're going to slip stitch into here, yarn over. Normally I say with a slip stitch you need to pull it really tight, but actually it's quite hard with this yarn to make slip stitches disappear completely. So what we have to do is ignore them. Do by all means pull it tight, but we also have to ignore it. We're going to yarn over and pull through everything on your hook, like that, just here. Now this V here, that's just immediately behind your hook, this is the slip stitch. So I'm going to mark this so that you don't get confused and think it's a stitch. When you're using a thinner yarn, if you pull your slip stitch really tight, this V shape here, that is your slip stitch, disappears largely, so it doesn't look the same as your other stitches and it's less confusing. But if you see here, because of the thickness of the yarn, this bit is actually the same size as this. This one is a real stitch, this one is your slip stitch. So we need to ignore this one. And I'm going to put a safety pin in it so that you can see it for when we get back round the row again. Let's try and put the safety pin through the stitch and not actually into the yarn. There we go, like that. Now we're going to chain 1. The chain doesn't count as a stitch, and we're going to put 2 half doubles into this first stitch here, the same stitch that you slip stitched into. So it's this very first hole just here. We're going to put 2 in there. There's 1. There's 2. And then we're going to put 2 into the next one, which is just here. So there's 1. There's 2. And now we're going to put 1 half double crochet stitch into each of the next 14 stitches, so all the way down here, and I'll come back to you when I've done that. So I've done my 14 half doubles down here, and now I'm going to put 2 half double crochet stitches into each of the next 4. It looks slightly off center because the first one is going to go in here and the fourth one is going to go in here. So you see they're not directly opposite each other, but it is right. So don't worry about it if you think that's not looking quite straight. So I'm going to put 2 in each of these. So there's 2 for the first one. There's 1, 2 for the second. There's the third. 1, 2, and here's the last one. There we go, and now we're going to do 14 in each, 1 in each of the next 14 down here. So again, I'll come back to you when I've done that bit. So that's my 14 done, and now we need to do 2 half doubles into each of the last 2 stitches. And you might look at this and you think, that's a very big gap. I've got more than 2 stitches left. Well, that's because this one here, this last one, is your slip stitch. So this is not a stitch. So actually we have only got 1, 2 stitches left. We're going to put half doubles, 2 half doubles into each of these 2. So one's going in here. And then 1 in there. Now we're going to completely ignore the slip stitch, and we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch of the row. So this was the slip stitch that we're ignoring just here. where the safety pin is. This first little bit here, this is the chain 1. This isn't counting as a stitch, so we're also ignoring that. And we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch in the row. Here's the half double crochet stitch, that's the first stitch in the row. And there, just here, this is the space that we're working into for that stitch. So we're going to insert the hook into that hole just there. Yarn over, pull back through everything on your hook and pull it up. Now, again, this one here, immediately behind the loop that's on your hook, this very first V, this is the slip stitch that we've just made, so this is not going to count as a stitch for the next row. I'm going to take the safety pin out because we don't need it in there anymore, and I'm going to put it in the next row up. So this was the slip stitch, this is the one that we're going to ignore. We're just going to pop that in that hole. And now we're going to do a chain 1. And we're going to carry on with the rest of the pattern. So we're going to do 1 half double crochet stitch into the first stitch. Again, it's the one that you slip stitched into. So it's this hole just here. There's your chain 1. It's the hole right at the base of the chain 1 just there. That's going to be your first stitch. And now we're going to carry on with row 3, and I'll come back to you when we're back to do the join up for the end of row 3. So here we are. I've got all the way around the row, and I just have one last stitch to go. So again, this one here, right here, this stitch is the slip stitch, so this doesn't count. So the final stitch in the row is this one just here. We're going to make a half double crochet stitch into that one, and there like that. And now slip stitch into the first stitch in the row. So the slip stitch doesn't count. This first little V here, this is your chain 1, we're not counting that. And we're going to go into the first actual stitch here. Again, if in doubt, pull it all sideways, find the post, and the hole is above and to the right of the post. So there's the post, there's the hole. We're going to slip stitch into here. Just like that. Now, we're going to start with row 4. Row 4 starts with a chain of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you skip the first stitch because that's covered by your chain. You skip the next stitch, and we're going to put a single crochet stitch into stitch number 3, which is this one just here. So the one that the chain comes out of is covered by the chain. We're going to skip the next stitch, put a single crochet stitch into stitch number 3. To do a single, you just insert your hook. A single is a double crochet in UK terms, or a single crochet in US terms. So you insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, come back through, gives you 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through both of them. Like that. And now I'm going to take this safety pin out of here and just insert it into, when I can get it out, that first loop here. And we're going to put it into the chain space, so this gap just here, this big one. I'm going to put that in there like that. And now we're going to carry on around the row for the rest of row 4, and I'll come back to you when we've done this bit. So this takes you to the end of row 4, and I've got to finish the row off. I need to do one more chain 3. I'm going to skip this stitch, and I'm going to ignore the slip stitch again, which is this V just here, and I'm going to make a slip stitch into the first of the chains that we made, which is just here. So we do a chain 3 first, 1, 2, 3. We skip one stitch, which is this one just here. We're going to ignore the slip stitch, and we're going to work a slip stitch into the bottom one of these chains. So we're going in there, and you want to pick up 2 loops of yarn if you can, yarn over, and just pull it through everything on your hook. Pull this one a bit tight. There we go. Now, this space that we've got marked here with the safety pin, we're going to do a slip stitch into this chain space. So I'm going to insert my hook into the chain space, yarn over, pull back through, everything on the hook. And now from here, I'm ready to start round 5. Take this one out of here. Round 5 starts with a chain of 3 and slip stitch into the next chain space over here. Now I'm going to put a stitch marker just in here, like that, and then carry on around the rest of the row until I've come back, and I'll show you how to do the join at the end. Here we go. Now, I realised I said before, slip stitch into the chain space, and of course we're not slip stitching, we're single crocheting into the chain spaces. So I've just got one last chain space here that I need to put a single crochet stitch into. So we're doing that in here like this. And then I'm going to do one more chain 3. And now I need to do a slip stitch into the first chain from my first loop here. So here's the first chain archway, if you like. We marked it with the safety pin. And if you have a look, here's the first V just here. So we're going to go into that V. Again, you need to make sure that you are picking up 2 loops on your hook, 1, 2. And we're going to do a slip stitch in there. So yarn over and pull through. And then we're going to do another slip stitch into this first chain space just here. And we're ready to go again for the next round. So I'm going to do 3 or 4 more rounds, and I'll come back and show you what the seam is looking like in a minute's time. So here we are, I'm just getting to the end of round 9 here. This is what it's looking like so far, if you can sort of see that from there. I have to do a chain 3 and then a single crochet stitch into here, and then this was my first loop of the round, so I'm going to do one in here and then join into here. So we go 1, 2, 3, single crochet into here, and then 3 chains, and so this is my first chain arch, let's call it a chain arch just here. And if we look here, this one just here, this is the first V, so this is the first chain of that chain arch. That's where I'm going to make the slip stitch. So we go in, pick up 2 bits of yarn on the hook there, yarn over, come through, everything on your hook. Now, so this is round 9. So this is the end of the bag here. I don't know how well you can see this. This is the end of the bag here. And this is the slip stitch here. So it's travelled a little bit, but we've not gone a really long way. We're still basically, if I turn it this way, you'll see we're only just past that edge here. So it's travelled around a little bit, but it's not gone, we're not halfway down the bag yet. So I've got another few rows of this to do, and I will come back to you and show you when I'm on the last row. Okay, so this is the end of round 12. There we go, I can't actually fit the whole bag in now. This is the end of round 12, and I'm about to do round 13. So I'm going to take the safety pin out of this one and do a slip stitch in here. Then you see that this slip stitch has travelled now, so it's now nearly a third of the way across the bag, with one last round of this mesh to go. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3 chains, single crochet stitch, put this back in here so we know when we've got back there. And let's zip round this last row. I think I've got the yarn caught on Barney's Lego model. He's never going to be happy about that. There we go. If that pulled apart, I'd be in deep trouble. See, what you can't see is that I'm sat here crocheting this surrounded by bits of part-built Lego model in my loft. Kid stuff everywhere. There we go. We're getting there, nearly there now. Here we go. So there's the last loop just here, going in here. And there's the V, so we're going to go in there and yarn over and pull back through. Just like that. And there is the last one. And now we're ready to go onto our top edging. I'm going to do that in a separate video though, because this video is now enormous. So I'll see you on part 2. Bye!